Hello, and welcome to Tasting Cardboard, Episode 1 in Portland, Oregon. Today I'm going to be reviewing some of these baseball cards, mostly from the junk wax era, and in honor of these wax products, I'm going to be chewing this piece of double bubble gum after I finish reviewing the cards. And it's been on this table for a very long time, so I think that's, as you can hear, it's hard. So I think that's appropriate in honor of the era that some of these cards come from. Yeah, so let's get it started with Donruss 1990, Pat Combs, rated rookie. That is a rookie card. It is appropriate because Pat Combs did have a really good rookie season. He started 6 games for the Philadelphia Phillies, pitched 38.2 innings to a 2.09 ERA. Unfortunately, past his rookie season, he did not go very far in his major league career. As far as the card design goes, I'm really not a fan of Donruss 1990. You can see it's sort of a flimsier make. It's got this really ugly patterning that looks a little bit dirty, and I think the red clashes with a lot of the pictures that they chose. Yeah, and as far as taste, I'd say a bit papery. You know, these are pack pulled, so you really have preserved a lot of that natural card flavor. Good texture to it, sort of a lighter chew, especially given that, as I said, very cheap, thin printed quality. That comes through in the card, and it really comes through in the depths of the flavors. It's very monotonous in terms of tasting like paper. Alright, so this next card is Juan Samuel out of Studio 91. That's a Fleer product that is pretty cool because it highlights the personalities of the players, and as you can see from the pink bordering, and you know, there's really no action shots in this set. It's a really cool, you know, up close look at a lot of these players. And I mean, as far as Juan Samuel goes, I think a little overrated by the metrics of his day. Good batting average, not much of a defender, put up 17 WAR and stuck around until he was 37, which is a huge accomplishment. Made 3 All-Star teams and won a Silver Slugger, which, you know, a long career. Somebody who's cool, you know, normally because you look at the back of their card and they've been playing for a long time, and with Studio, you get a little description, and that's, I mean, it's a different look for the product, but I think it's missing a lot of what I really look to for, and at least in terms of like nostalgia purposes with some of these older cards. That being said, I think it's a cool idea. Definitely more of an earthier kind of initial taste. The quality of the cardstock, I think, really comes through. You can get a solid chew in there. Out of this junk wax era, kind of everything was a little bit overprinted, but something like Studio was maybe a little higher quality, and you know, the complexity of the flavors of the cardstock really come through in, you know, as you're chewing the paper. Next up, we have Bernard Gilkey for the Cardinals out of Fleer 1991. I think pretty cool retro card design. Bernard Gilkey, I think, is an interesting player. I'd never heard of him. You can check his baseball reference. He put up 8.1 WAR for the New York Mets in 1996. I suppose a rookie card if it's coming out of 1991, because he debuted in 1990. Let's take a look, you know, for an 8.1 WAR season, you know, typically is around the threshold to be considered for an MVP candidate. Bernard Gilkey was 14th in the 1996 National League and the NL MVP, and Barry Bonds was in 5th. So, you know, that tells you a bit about how much they knew about baseball back then. Other than that, not much to speak of. Kind of an exciting card, you know, being a rookie. Yeah. Mm. Okay, I definitely am tasting, I think, some of the gum residue. You know, a bit of sweetness on the initial contact with the tongue. Yeah, I mean, what a treat. Bernard Gilkey, you know. Mm. And kind of a woody feel. Wow, what a complexity in the chewing experience. The grain of the paper really came through and added texture that I don't think I ever see in a card. You know, that is something that's really special. And I have nothing but good things to say about Fleer 1991. This is a bit of a weird one. This card is Pokey Reese out of 1995 Best Minor League Top 100. Now, I tried to find out what I could about Best, the manufacturer, but unfortunately it is incredibly difficult to find results because when you Google best baseball cards, you get a lot of lists of the best baseball cards. Same when you Google best baseball card manufacturer. I think you get a link to the Topps website. This was an interesting rip for me. A lot of these guys, you know, never even made it to the major leagues or didn't have a particularly long or relevant career. You know, I think there's a lot of character in some of these minor league cards. It's pretty hard to read the logo of his minor league team here in the top left. Even though it's a pretty nice card, you know, pretty slick. Let's just say he played for the Indianapolis Guardians. You know, maybe not the part of baseball history we're most proud of, but, you know, pretty cool to find a best minor league card. The best thing I could find was a PSA pop count. Now, not a lot of these were being graded. I think the main guy to come out of this set was Vladimir Guerrero, which is cool, but not a lot of Pokey Reese. You know, not a very long career. Kind of a quad A guy, it looks like. Ooh, I would say, I think if I were to compare this to a wine, I would say it's dry. I think you definitely get the bitterness, certainly, of the ink, and the thinness of the cardstock doesn't really give me a lot of hope for perhaps the ironically named best trading cards. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we've come to expect out of wax products from this era as collectors. I mean, not a lot of flavor. The two main things you're gonna get, and I understand that there's people who like this kind of thing, but you get the bitterness and you get the paper. Not personally my taste, I have to say. I like a bit of a thicker cardstock. I really think that translates to a better experience with these cards. All right, so out of Topps Stadium Club, this is John Burke of the Colorado Rockies. I got my hands on a full team set of the Rockies out of Stadium Club for this year. It was one of the Rockies' first years of existence. So, you know, it was guys they'd got through the expansion draft and therefore not a lot of great players. John Burke definitely suffered from being a pitcher in Colorado's stadium. Never posted an ERA below 6.5. Only lasted 2 seasons. And I have to sympathize with Rockies fans as a Brewers fan myself. Being an expansion franchise in a smaller market is definitely tough. But, you know, on the bright side, it also gives guys like John Burke, who might not otherwise get that chance to, you know, get through another team's minor leagues. You know, they get their shot. So whichever way you want to spin it. With that being said, I have some high hopes for Stadium Club being one of those nicer mainline products. But given what I've tasted here today from this era, I really don't know what to expect. I really think this is an example of a thin card done right. You could have fooled me holding this and the best Pokey Reese. I mean, you can see these are both thin cards, but look at this. It bends, but it does not break. Unlike this Poké card. And I think that really says something about the quality. More of a glossy finish that holds up versus cardboard. Almost a gummy quality. It really layers itself well. You can feel it starting to come apart, and you get a little bit more of that glue flavor coming through. A lot of the glue flavor, I think some bitterness from the inks, and then that really opens up as the layers of the paper separate. Yeah, you know, I mean, maybe I was too harsh on this era. I mean, you've got the good and the bad, and that goes for all of sports cards. And I'm happy to buy, you know, a set of Stadium Club Rockies, because ultimately these cards aren't going to carry a lot of value, and that means, you know, you can get them in bulk. And especially with, you know, inflation in the grocery store, you know, I think it just pays to be resourceful. I thought I'd mix up the end of this episode by throwing in some modern cards. So this one comes out of 2024 Topps Update. Griffin Jax, he's a reliever for the Minnesota Twins. Sort of an older reliever, seemed to kind of figure things out last year, so could have a good future ahead of him. I'm not a huge fan of ultra modern, I'll be completely honest. I think quality control has gone off the rails. You know, not as far back as the junk wax era, but I'm talking like 2016, post-pandemic. I'll just eat the card. I can't really communicate how disappointed I am with modern Topps products. What really trips me up about sports cards is a monotony of flavor. We've seen the prices of sealed product skyrocket in recent years, and yet I would say the quality has gone down since, you know, the early 2010s. I have trouble, you know, tasting the difference between a Topps Tribute and a Topps Triple Threads or a Topps Museum Collection. And with dilution comes, I think, a real decrease in quality and attention to detail. So we have our last card here. This one I'm pretty excited about. Justin Turner, one of my favorite players. You hate to root for the Dodgers now that they're kind of the evil empire in terms of contracts, but for me at least, I've always sort of enjoyed that like Brooklyn Dodgers connection. And you know, he was kind of a hero for that team before, you know, they really became dominant in the last couple of years. Yeah, kind of a shame that there's not a spot for him on that roster anymore. Makes sense. His production has definitely declined, as well as his defense. But I'm pretty excited. I think Topps Chrome has the potential to be sort of that higher end product that we're missing from, say, a base Topps Update. There's a real, I would say almost buttery finish. I compare this Topps Chrome to one of these higher end wax products like Studio 91 or maybe Topps Stadium Club. Obviously I haven't fully dug into this card yet, but I'm anticipating that these three cards are really going to be my standouts. I'm definitely more of a fan of higher end products. It's unfortunate, you know, that mainline paper Topps products are borderline inedible these days, and it forces collectors to go up to products like Topps Chrome that are, you know, maybe a harder chew. I mean, that's what you need at this point to really find a good experience out of a Topps product. That being said, you know, I'll let you know how I interpret this as I expose it to my palate. Yeah, I mean, kind of as they say, Topps Chrome it's kind of like oysters and fish. It comes in a chrome shell, which unfortunately the plastic is inedible, but with a bit of opening up, you can get to the paper inside, and it's some work, but it's a real treat. And just like that, this one has a little bit more meat on it, and so I'm just gonna scrape at it a bit with my teeth. And I think that's really a good way to this kind of experience really makes the hobby more inaccessible. It continues to price people out of the hobby, and I wouldn't say I'm in favor of products like Topps Chrome overall, but from a food perspective, I think that this is going to be a real treat. Gotta be careful not to swallow the plastic. Wow, what an experience. The pulpiness of the paper really comes through in this format. I think there's something to be said for the experience of biting into a fresh card, the lightness and the airiness in your mouth. Yeah, I mean, if you can afford it, I definitely think it's my go-to for modern sports cards. Thank you for watching Tasting Cardboard. I'm going to eat this double bubble gum now. And that's just how I like it. Spit out the gum, swallow the paper. Thanks for watching.